Do you want to give a little introduction?
Yes, my name is Lindsay. I'm the mom of two, soon to be three girls. My oldest is 10, and she was diagnosed with ADHD when she was 5 or 6. And it's been a whirlwind ever since Lara's been on the scene. So we have fun.
Lindsay, how did you find out that she had ADHD?
When Lara was little, I was a single mom. By the time she was in public school, she was struggling. Even from the very beginning, she had struggles in the classroom. She had emotional outbursts. Sometimes she was aggressive and violent towards other students. She would often throw fits and struggled with transitions. There were lots of reasons given to me as to why they were struggling and wanted me to start looking at other possibilities to see what could be done.
As the mom, did you suspect that there was something up with Lara?
Not initially. Like I had said, I was a single mom. I was young and alone.
And this was your first kid?
First kid. Yep. It was just me and her. I felt confused and frustrated and scared at the idea that she might have ADHD because it felt like their issue was with me and my single motherhood. We were an at risk type of person, type of family, somebody who is marked as at risk and might need more resources and would automatically have the odds stacked against them based on all of the statistics. And I would hear these statistics at the doctor's office or at any government agency I went to whenever I was on benefits or at the schools. And so I know very well what people think of single motherhood and the dynamics that brings and how you're essentially raising your child in an inferior situation. I was on the defensive automatically. It was like, I don't think my child has ADHD. I think you guys are seeing the results of a child being raised in a single parent household, and I'm being essentially called out for it. That's what it felt like at the time. I wasn't sure where it all stemmed from, but it felt like a judgment more than them trying to help me in this process.
I understand. So you felt singled out as a single mom versus having a kid who needed help.
Yes, because Lara's issues in the classroom were just one aspect of the interventions that occurred. So it wasn't the first thing. I was pushed and encouraged strongly to get free and reduced lunches. And one of my frustrations with that was after living in New York and being on benefits in New York, I did not want to do that in Minnesota. I wanted to start fresh and to start over and not be on any benefits. For them to immediately try to force me into that was really a very frustrating thing to experience.
And why were they trying to force you into reduced lunches?
Lara struggled with impulse control. Even though I would pack her lunch every day, it built up to her going and getting a tray of food. And I was told regularly they can't deny a child food. And in theory, that's great, but they couldn't prevent her from getting a tray. They couldn't notice that she had a lunch at school and remind her of that. This wasn't a matter of, oh, mom forgot my lunch. It was literally every single day. And I had a bill that I could not pay to the schools pretty quickly. When I called them and I told them that they need to help me with this, they told me we can't do that. And they had sent notes home with me with her school lunch a couple of times saying, this isn't a balanced lunch. Here's what we require, which again, always felt like an indictment on my single motherhood and how I'm not giving her a balanced meal and how statistically that makes sense because I'm a single mother. It was a buildup of a problem, and it all started with that. So eventually I did have to get on free and reduced lunches because they were not going to do anything to help me.
Do you want to hear a funny story?
Yeah.
Gunnar, my son, your nephew, he has ADHD as well. And I pack lunch for him every day, as well as feeding him breakfast before he goes to school. And one day, he told me that he eats breakfast at school as well. second breakfast. And then I asked him about lunch, and he says, yeah, I eat my lunch and then I go get school lunch too. It's called second lunch. But here in Florida, they feed kids breakfast and lunch for free.
When Laura was doing that, it was not. They basically strong armed me into this situation where I had to be on this benefit, whether I liked it or not, because they weren't going to help me in any other way.
So do you almost feel like they bullied you into getting reduced lunch?
Absolutely. I know that for teachers, they had good intentions. Teachers don't want to see the kids suffer. They want to make sure everybody's getting fed, and they don't know what goes on at home. They're offering support. But from administration, it was absolutely strong arming. From administration, they essentially said, because we've been sued before successfully, we do whatever it takes to no longer be a liability. So that was the first thing. They would not prevent her from getting school lunches, knowing that she had packed lunches from home. It took several conversations, and I had conversations with her school principal as well. Like, I knew him very well. The 3 years I was in that school, she spent a lot of time in his office. I spent a lot of time emailing with him and calling him and having in-person meetings with him. I knew the administration very well because of our interactions. That wasn't just my first taste. As things progressed and Laura struggled in school and struggled with her peers, she spent a lot of time in that principal's office. All the teachers knew her. She's very gifted. She's twice exceptional. So she has ADHD, but she has an incredibly high IQ. There's not a place for them. They're told that they can go to special ed, and they lump all these children who have exceptions together as if all their exceptions are the same and they can all be trained up the same way. It progressed from the free and reduced lunches to then, we'd like for you to speak with our school psychologist or a school social worker is what it was actually. And you hear social worker and you think, great, now social work is getting involved and CPS and everyone is getting involved for what? And now I'm going to have all these people in our life who aren't actually trying to help. They're just trying to investigate. So I was like, fine, I will give it a chance, because clearly her kindergarten teacher is at her absolute wit's end. I've caught her crying in the hallway over my child, talking to the principal multiple times. At a certain point, you do realize, okay, your child is having these issues, and it would be silly to disregard that. At a certain point, you suck it up and you say, fine, I'm a single mom. I don't have resources outside of this school. I do need help with my child, and I am asking for that help. Can we collaborate and work together to help this child succeed? The social worker recommended, after meeting with Laura weekly for a year, that Laura does need a diagnosis. We can get her resources. We can get her help. We'd like for you to go forward with testing. I went to my doctor's office and we started that process. And we had her evaluated and assessed by a couple of people at the school, including her first grade teacher, along with all of the testing that she had done by a psychologist at our local hospital. In that process, that was a long, drawn out process as well. She did have a diagnosis of ADHD. She has quite the combination. She scored very high in her combination, and they're pretty extreme. She has pretty much all of the extremes of ADHD. She's not a particularly hyperactive kid or a particularly inattentive child. She has both, as well as a super high processing speed and a terrible working memory. So she can come up with answers in her brain as fast as a computer, but she can't pull them from her brain to communicate them efficiently.
How frustrating.
Yes. So she has a very difficult form of ADHD that is really hard to work with when they're young. I'm glad that we did go through with that process and get her diagnosed so that I could understand how her brain works.
Did Lara ever experience issues with her peers? Did she ever experience bullying?
Absolutely.
As a mom, how did that make you feel?
This whole process was tough because she is who she is. I don't happen to think there's anything wrong with her, but the statistics, the administration, her peers, everyone was telling me she's different, and that does not feel good.